When Taylor Smith's son Montez was 4 months old, she received some devastating news.
The only way he can live is if he gets a new liver.
And what was supposed to be a quick appointment at Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto turned into something much more serious for this London, Ontario mother of 3 and her family.
We went there, the doctor looked at him for 2 minutes, said, no, he's admitted, he's not allowed to leave.
Not allowed to leave because he may not live. The situation was becoming even more dire. They knew Montez needed help, but they didn't realize it was so life-threatening so soon.
A doctor came in and said he's not going to make it until his first birthday.
Montez needed a new liver, and he needed it right away. Immediate family was not a match, so Montez would go on a wait list, but there was no guarantee. The wait can be long or even worse.
Every 3 days, one person on the wait list will die, just waiting because there are not enough organs. There was no match.
Less than 20% of Canadians are registered organ donors. Upon death, they've agreed to give that gift of life if possible. What's extremely rare is an anonymous, altruistic living donor. Someone who, while they are still alive, simply decides to donate an organ and save a stranger's life without receiving anything in return. Meet Sarah Middleton.
The decision to try was a no-brainer.
As Montez was waiting for a donation, Middleton was in the process of becoming a living donor, inspired by a story she saw on CBC News.
I was scrolling through the news one morning while I was having my coffee, and I read a story. It was a CBC News story about a family from Kingston that had adopted 2 little girls. They were about 3 years old. They were twins from Vietnam. And both of those little girls had a fatal liver condition. And their father was a match to donate a piece of his liver to save one of the little girls.
Doctors say Michael Wagner and his daughter Fwok are stable after their surgeries in Toronto. Now his other daughter, Bin, is still waiting for a liver donor.
The problem was that only one of the girls could be a recipient, and for a lot of reasons this seemed like a very devastating circumstance.
That story about those little girls in Kingston, Ontario, powerful enough to inspire this woman in Brant County to save the life of a stranger anonymously. They would never meet, they would never know each other's name. A process so rare that according to the Canadian Institute for Health Information, the data around the number of cases is not being reliably captured yet. But still, Middleton felt she was in the right position personally and professionally to go through with the surgery.
For me, I don't have children, so I didn't have anyone at home that was depending on me. I could take time off work, I could be in a hospital, if the recovery ended up taking a little longer than expected, or I couldn't go back to work right away, my life wouldn't have been impacted very deeply. So I felt I was the right candidate for it for those reasons.
After a series of tests, Middleton was ready, and the family of Montez received the news they'd been waiting for.
Somebody matched up. He goes in less than 2 days.
But they knew very little about where the liver was coming from.
They said it was just from a lady. We couldn't know her age, anything about her actually. It was a lady that was donating, and that was it.
I knew that there was a baby at Sick Kids Hospital in dire need of a liver that I was perfectly matched with.
Although hopeful, Smith was scared. There was risk of rejection.
By the day of the surgery, when they came in and they're like, we're going to take him, and I had to sign all the waivers, and then I started breaking down. I was like, no, you can't take him. Like, I still let him go, but I was like, then I'm bawling.
And for Middleton, she also didn't know if the transplant would work. This was a risky decision, one her husband supported.
I was pretty comfortable with it. I knew it was big, but Toronto General is a leader in the planet.
On January 6th, 2016, Sarah Middleton was here at Toronto General Hospital. Early that morning, in what was a 6-hour surgery, doctors removed a piece of her liver. It was then taken across the street through the tunnels below over to Sick Kids. That's where a family was waiting for that life-saving transplant. That family, Taylor Smith and her son Montez, waiting and desperately hoping the transplant would work.
It took 10.5 hours, so it was a lot longer than expected.
And the wait to find out if her son would live, excruciating, but worth every second. Everything matched perfectly. Both families relieved the surgery had gone well.
I had a whole feeling come up in me, and I was surprised. I didn't anticipate any of that, and I guess I wanted to hear she was good.
And both Sarah Middleton and Montez Hernandez would spend the next few months healing, unaware of who the other was.
Like there were times when I was laying in the hospital and I was in, to be honest, I was in an awful lot of pain. And I would just picture them, not even knowing who they were. I would just picture a family, and I'd picture a baby, a healthy baby, and it would relax me.
And you may be wondering why, if this was an anonymous donation, how are you hearing from both sides? Perhaps not a coincidence, instead a meeting destined to happen. It's a story you have got to hear.
A friend of mine, an old high school acquaintance friend of mine, was at Sick Kids Hospital in London, and she was having a conversation with a young mom that was there with her baby boy. And they were just chatting, and the young mom was telling my friend why she was at the hospital, and that she was there because her baby boy had had a organ transplant, a liver transplant. And because of that, he was susceptible to, if he had an infection, he would have to be in the hospital. So he was just there because of a minor infection. And they were chatting, and the mom said, we wouldn't even be here if it weren't for an organ donation that we got, and we don't even know how to thank the person because it was a complete stranger, and our baby's going to be turning 1 in a few weeks, and the doctors told us he'd never make it to his first-year birthday if he didn't have this organ donation, but it was a complete stranger. And my friend was sitting there thinking, that's weird, I wonder how often that happens. So she said, I have a friend that did that. She donated an organ anonymously, but she did it in Toronto. And the mom said, well, yeah, that's where our surgery was. It was in Toronto. And they kept discussing it until they had concluded that it could only have been me, by just saying, well, when was it? What month was it? What day was it? And I was getting text messages from my friend. And she sent me a message and said, I think I might be sitting at the hospital in London with the mom of the baby that you donated your liver to.
The stories matched up. Then Middleton received the most powerful Facebook message you will ever see. Thank you so much for saving our son's life.
It was the first time in the whole process that I teared up. And I did cry a little bit when I got that.
Why?
It became more real. I mean, trust me, the whole experience was quite real. But the fact that it was another person and not just my story, it changed it for me. It became very, very real.
If Middleton had not literally given a piece of herself, Smith knows her life could be very different today.
If somebody didn't donate out of their free will, this wanting to help somebody, I would have lost my son.
And although they still have not met in person, Smith knows what she'll say to Middleton when and if they do.
I'd probably cry, give her a hug, and say, thanks. Sorry. Yeah, it's a lot to take in. Oh, you give me a hug? Do you need one?
Sarah, we are so inspired by the generosity that's incomparable. There's nothing that we can compare it to. It is so generous to have saved a life and know that a person is going to go on living, live a full life, grow up, potentially have a family as well, all because of your generosity.
It was really great to see my wife kind of do a heroic thing like that. And it'll always be a really phenomenal memory.
And inspired by Middleton, Smith says one day she'll look into paying it forward and becoming a living donor herself.
I've thought about doing it now, once the kids are a little bit older and I can more time, I guess, then I want to look into it and do the same thing, because if somebody can help me not knowing us, then I'd rather help somebody in the same situation.
And Sarah Middleton doesn't think being a living donor is for everyone, but does want people to know there are much smaller sacrifices you can make that are equally as powerful.
I hope that somebody would think, wow, if Sarah could do something like that, I could at least go donate my blood, or I could at least double check beadonor.ca and make sure that I have my registration up to date for my organ donation.
People need to be educated that they can register consent in less than 2 minutes. Just go to beadonor.ca and have your OHIP card with its number, and you can be registered. You can also go to a Service Ontario office, or you can download a form from beadonor.ca, fill it in by hand, and mail it in. It is so easy.
Today, Montez is healthy and full of energy, still getting checkups and closely monitored, but healthier now than he has ever been. Inside this boy, a piece of a stranger's liver, and it saved his life. Inside Sarah Middleton's heart, a special place for this little boy who didn't just make it to his first birthday. He's getting ready to celebrate his 4th.